we're going to keep moving along because that's all about what Monday is all about, moving very quickly to introduce lots of people to you and lots of different experiences, lots of different perspectives and backgrounds, I guess. We have been delighted, we've been grateful, we've been blessed with some of the people that have passed through Creative Brain Week. And I get the great chance to just have a very brief chat with two or three of them. Some of them are going to get to talk later in the week, so you get to hear from them at length. But we thought while we have this opportunity for everybody to gather together, I might just get the chance to ask them one or two questions. So I'm going to invite the extraordinary, awe-inspiring Dela Wilson. Would you like to come and join me on the stage? We're going to conversational mode. So we're also going to invite you to talk in a minute or two. Dela, hello. How are you? You're going to need to use your mic.
I'm doing really well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
We're delighted that you're here. Thank you for travelling. You might explain to the good people here, how did you first come to Creative Brain Week? Where are you based? What do you normally do?
The what I do question is always a hard one, but I have to say I've found a friend and colleague in Dominic as someone who understands how difficult it is to explain the myriad of a creative life that I live. So I am a lawyer by training. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I run a strategy and design studio called Axel Impact Studio. We work across disciplines. We have collectives of psychologists, of behavioral scientists, of researchers, of strategists, of graphic designers, and the like, that are mixed around teams to spur innovative thinking. And we apply that thinking to different social problems. And so I started this firm right out of law school years ago, and I decided not to practice. So we've been going for about 7 years now. But with that, my approach to this work had begun to change. Coming from the US, as you can imagine, we are an increasingly polarizing socio-political system. And with that, as we moved through culture-changing strategies within institutions, we continue to face resistance by individuals who refuse to think differently, creatively, expansively. And we're used to doing the same things over and over again. So I was kind of thinking around, how do we start to change something about what we're doing? We need to start to innovate ourselves. So as an Atlantic Fellow for Racial Equity, I had the privilege to join a group of fellows for Creative Brain Week back in 2024. And at the time, I was noodling on just an idea around a virtual reality project called the Hope Gap. And I wanted to use VR, which is something I'd never worked with before, but use VR as a way to transport people into societies that were moving in a more progressively healthy way, and to show them that, hey, it is possible for us to be more equal, more loving, more friendly, more supportive to one another. And at the time, it was just an idea. And so I came to Creative Brain Week, and I had the privilege of meeting two individuals that to this day are so important to this project and to this work. We're now 2.5 years in. One is Dr. Tanisha Hill-Jarrett, who is a neuropsychologist and a GBHI fellow, and the other is Dr. Sissy Fu. Tanisha's research around weathering and the use of Afrofuturist narratives to support particularly Black women elders that are facing dementia, and Dr. Sissy Fu's work around institutional responsibility and institutional creativity, and how we are actually using creativity day to day, but to what end? Those sorts of, that type of research and strategies started to have me thinking through, well, how do we then tell a story through VR, through mixed modal storytelling that can start to expand our belief and possibility around restorative justice, reparative justice practices? And so now, fast forward 2.5 years later, we have a few working prototypes. We have an augmented reality experience that uses your cell phone to activate a really amazing report by Cornell Williams Brooks out of Harvard University that outlines over 50 reparative justice policies that the United States has passed, but it does so in a way that starts to build persuasion. But we know that those papers often circulate the groups of people that are writing them, and we wanted to get that into a broader space, so we put it into AR. So that was one of our first projects. We also have a 15-minute vertical slice that sits within a VR headset. And that transports you to 3 societies around the world that have reparative justice in process. Auckland, New Zealand is one of them. Windhoek, Namibia is another, and Evanston, Illinois is a third. And so that project has been screened at Oxford University in the UK, as well as in Atlanta, Georgia, my hometown, and we're headed up to Princeton University in about a few weeks with Dr. Ruha Benjamin. So got a lot of kudos to Creative Brain Week.
A lot of stuff going on. And you are one of the few people who is ever going to persuade me that VR and XR, you and Mike probably, is a really good idea. And so you can listen to people talk about that. You can listen to Dela talk about that on Tuesday. You can join Mike on Friday in IMA. Your work is all about, so I've got one question for you really, which is about how do you get people to think better together? You come as a lawyer. You start as a lawyer, you have a lawyer's training, a lawyer's education. You deal with these incredibly complicated generational issues. You deal with the limitations of law. You deal with people who have made choices to think otherwise. And so, where'd you start?
I really think it's so much about getting back to the core essence of who we are as humans that require connection and intimacy. And so much of the practice of law, which is adversarial by design, which is based on precedent, can abstract us from human connectivity and relationship and chemistry that happens between bodies when they are physically in proximity to one another, right? And I'm reminded, so Sue Mayo's work is also really informative to me, and we did an exercise in 2024 where she had us we were partnered 2 by 2, and we held a little piece of like a straw in between us. So we had to walk really close to a stranger that we didn't know for like a good 30 minutes, and we couldn't let go of that. And we had to move around the room as we examined different interpretations of the idea of repair until we could collectively land on one that we both agreed on. But we could not break that straw, that connection. And I think that's what it is, to remind ourselves that we actually are inherently connected, but we have so many reminders every day that make us think that we're not. We really need more spaces like this that put us physically in proximity, and I think that's where we start.
Brilliant answer, as ever. And that's why you can watch Creative Brain Week on Monday and Tuesday online. That's why Monday and Tuesday is quite talky. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to move around the city. We took some learning from Kim, actually, and we realized that if you go to a different place, you get a different experience. You get a different kind of engagement. And so we invite you to join us on that journey of development and discovery and exploration and confusion. And we ask you mostly to sit with the problem. We ask you to stay with the problem. You're going to come back tomorrow afternoon. You're going to talk. Is there anything you want to tell the good people before we swap over with Athol?
Take a deep breath.
Can we invite you to do that? Okay, can you tell me with your hands, a quick improvised moment, tell me with your hands what's your energy like? There have been travelling people. Are you very excited? Give me a show of fingers. Oh yeah, some people are there. Yeah, some like you need, okay. So I'm going to invite you just to move your fingers like this. And as you do this, by the miracle of biology, you extend your rib cage. Take a breath in. And then breathe out. And if you're watching online, you can join in, but you'll also see fingers arriving above the screen through the camera, and laughter. And breathe out. And then one last big breathe in. And then let it go. Dela Wilson, thank you for bringing breath into the room.
Absolutely, thank you.
Gorgeous.